Sari woke before the weak sun rose. The cold had already crept into the small shelter, pressing against the thin metal walls. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and listened. Her mother's breathing was shallow, uneven, like air being pulled through damaged cloth. That sound had become the clock of Sari's life. As long as she heard it, she knew she still had time. When it stopped, she was afraid there would be nothing left to measure time with. Sari rose quietly. She did not want to wake her mother. Moving too fast might steal strength from her, even if that was only a fear in Sari's mind. She checked the water container. Almost empty. A few cloudy drops clung to the bottom. Not enough for today. Not enough for medicine, not enough for life. She closed her eyes for a moment and breathed in. Then she stood straight. "I will be back," she whispered, even though her mother could not hear her clearly anymore. "Please wait." Outside, the world was gray and sharp. The planet had once been called Karis 9 by survey teams, but no one used that name now. To those who lived here, it was simply the dry world. Wind cut across cracked ground. Rocks jutted upward like broken teeth. Nothing grew unless it fought hard to do so. Water existed here, but it did not want to be found. Sari lifted the container and slung it across her back. It was almost as big as her small body, and when it was full, it felt like it wanted to pull her into the ground. She was used to it. She had been making this walk since her mother grew sick. At first she had gone with neighbors, then the neighbors left. Some moved away, some disappeared. Now it was only her. She stepped onto the path, careful where she placed her feet. One wrong step could mean a fall into a narrow crack, deep enough that no one would ever hear you scream. She followed the rocks she knew, the ones shaped like bent fingers and split shells. She counted her steps, the way her mother had taught her when she was younger. The danger did not come all at once. It came in pieces. First, there were the creatures, long, thin things that moved under the dust and burst upward when they sensed vibration. Sari walked softly, placing her feet the way she had learned. Still, she felt the ground tremble once. Her heart raced, but the movement passed. Then there were the raiders. They came from the north camps, flying broken ships patched together with scrap. They hunted anything that could be traded or eaten. A young alien girl alone on a water route was an easy prize. Sari avoided them by traveling early and by hiding when she heard engines. She had learned their sounds, the low growl and sharp whine. Today, the air was quiet, too quiet. Sari slowed. Her ears flicked slightly as she listened. No engines, no creatures, only wind. That made her more nervous than noise ever did. She pressed forward anyway. Turning back was not an option. Her mother needed water today, not tomorrow. The water source lay in a shallow basin carved into stone. Long ago, underground pressure had pushed liquid to the surface. Now it collected slowly, drop by drop. The water was not clean. It carried minerals that made people sick over time. But it was all they had. When Sari reached the basin, she knelt and checked the ground. Something was wrong. There were marks near the edge, deep marks, not claws, not hooves. They were flat, wide, pressed into the dust. She had never seen tracks like these before. They were spaced far apart like the steps of a tall being. Her chest tightened. Someone else had been here. Her first thought was raiders, but raiders left messes, broken stones, spilled water. These tracks were careful, controlled. Whoever made them had not rushed. Sari looked around, eyes wide. The basin was empty except for her. The wind blew dust across the marks, slowly hiding them. She should leave. Fear screamed at her to run, but she needed the water. She moved quickly now, filling the container as fast as she could. The water sloshed and shimmered, catching weak light. Her hands shook. She kept glancing up, half expecting someone to appear. That was when the engines roared. They came from behind the ridge, loud and sudden. 3 small craft rose into view, their hulls scarred and painted with warning symbols. Raiders. Sari froze. Her mind raced, but her body felt heavy. She had been caught. The ships landed hard, kicking dust into the air. Figures jumped down, tall and armored, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. One of them laughed when he saw her. "Well, look at this," he said in a rough voice. "All alone." Sari backed away, clutching the container. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure they could hear it. She turned, ready to run, even though she knew she would not make it far. A shot hit the ground near her feet, burning stone. She stopped. "Slow," another raider said. "We don't want to damage the goods." Tears burned her eyes, but she forced herself to stay upright. She thought of her mother, of the shelter, of the empty container. If she died here, her mother would follow soon after. Then something new entered the soundscape. A sharp crack split the air. Not like an energy weapon, something louder, heavier. One of the raiders shouted. Another fell, his weapon clattering to the ground. Smoke drifted from a hole in his armor. The raiders spun, confused. Sari turned too. A figure stood on the ridge above them. He was tall, taller than any of them. His body was wrapped in strange armor, smooth and solid. In his hands was a long weapon she had never seen before. His face was visible, uncovered. Pale skin, forward-facing eyes, no horns, no scales, a human. Sari had heard stories. Humans were rare, dangerous, survivors of worlds worse than this one. Some said they were monsters, some said they were ghosts. The human moved. He did not shout, he did not threaten, he acted. Another crack. Another raider dropped, his weapon torn from his hands. The last raider fired wildly, but the human was already moving, sliding behind stone, calm and fast. In seconds it was over. The remaining raiders fled, engines screaming as they lifted off. Silence returned, broken only by the wind. Sari stood frozen, unable to breathe. The human remained where he was for a moment, scanning the area. Then he lowered his weapon and slowly approached. Each step was careful, not rushed. When he was close enough, he stopped and lowered himself until he was at her eye level. "It's okay," he said. His voice was deep but not harsh. The words were spoken in a basic trade language, accented but clear. "I'm not going to hurt you." Sari could not speak. Her hands trembled around the container strap. The human noticed and gently set his weapon on the ground, pushing it away with his foot. "You're safe," he repeated. She searched his face for signs of hunger, cruelty, or falsehood. She found none. Only tired eyes and something else she did not understand. Concern. My mother," Sari whispered at last. "She is sick." The human's expression changed, not with fear or annoyance but focus. "Where?" he asked. She pointed back toward the path. He nodded once. "Show me." The walk back felt unreal. The human carried the water container as if it were nothing, slinging it over his shoulder with ease. Sari walked beside him, still half expecting him to vanish like a dream. They reached the shelter. The human paused at the entrance, waiting. Sari stepped inside first. Her mother lay where she had left her, eyes half open, skin dull. The human knelt beside her, scanning her with a small device. He frowned slightly. "Poisoned water," he said softly. "Long-term exposure." Sari's heart sank. "Can you fix her?" He did not answer right away. Instead, he opened a pack and pulled out tools, vials, filters. He worked quietly, efficiently, like someone who had done this many times before. "I can help," he said finally. "I can't promise everything, but I can help." Hope bloomed painfully in Sari's chest. Outside, the wind howled across the dry world. But inside the shelter, for the first time in a long while, Sari felt something other than fear. She felt that maybe, just maybe, she would not have to walk that path alone again. Morning came slowly, like the planet itself was unsure it wanted to wake up. Sari had not slept much. She sat near her mother, watching every breath, every small movement. The human had worked through the night, using his tools with quiet focus. He had cleaned the water, mixed medicine, and connected thin lines that slowly fed clean liquid into her mother's body. When he finally rested, it was only for a short while, sitting against the wall with his eyes closed but his body still alert. When the light changed outside, Sari noticed something new. Her mother's breathing sounded different. It was still weak, but it was steadier. Not as broken, not as shallow. Sari leaned closer, holding her breath. Her mother's eyes opened a little more than before. "Sari," her mother whispered. Tears filled Sari's eyes. She grabbed her mother's hand gently, afraid to squeeze too hard. "I am here," she said. "I brought help." Her mother's gaze shifted toward the human. He opened his eyes at once and moved closer, careful and respectful. He did not touch her without permission. He simply nodded once. "She is stable," he said. "Not healed yet, but better than before." Her mother looked at him for a long moment. "Human," she said quietly. "Why?" The human paused. He seemed to consider the question carefully, like it mattered. "Because you needed help," he answered. "That's enough for me." Her mother closed her eyes again, a small sign of relief crossing her face. Soon she drifted into deeper rest. The medicine hummed softly. Sari turned to the human. "My name is Sari," she said. "What is yours?" "Ethan," he replied. She repeated the name softly, as if testing how it sounded. "Ethan." "Yes." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the wind scraped against the shelter, but inside felt calmer than it ever had. Still, fear had not fully left Sari's chest. "They will come back," she said suddenly. "The raiders, they always do." Ethan nodded. "I know. You scared them," she said, "but there are more." "I know that too." She looked at him, confused. "Then why stay?" Ethan stood and looked around the shelter. The walls were thin, the floor uneven, the air carried dust even inside. "Because running won't fix this," he said, "and because you shouldn't have to risk your life for water." Sari lowered her head. "This world is like that," she said. "Only the strong live." Ethan shook his head slowly. "That's what people say when they stop trying to make things better." Later that day, Ethan went outside. Sari followed, watching as he studied the land like it was a puzzle. He scanned the horizon, marked paths in the dirt, and checked the old basin again. He frowned when he tested the water. "This poison builds slowly," he said. "Even small amounts hurt over time." "We have no other choice," Sari replied. "We will," he said, "soon." He unpacked more equipment from his pack, filters, tubes, panels that folded out and caught light. Sari watched in awe as he built something she had never imagined. A small purification unit powered by sunlight and movement. He tested it twice before nodding in satisfaction. "This will clean the water," he said. "Not fast, but steady." Sari touched it carefully like it might vanish. "Will it break?" "Everything breaks," Ethan said, "but I'll teach you how to fix it." That word stayed with her. Teach. Over the next few days, Ethan did not leave. He set up simple defenses around the shelter, nothing violent. Just alarms made from scrap and sound traps that warned of movement. He chose paths carefully, blocking some and clearing others. He showed Sari where to step, where not to. Why certain rocks were safer. Why certain winds meant danger. "You don't survive by being the strongest," he told her as they worked. "You survive by paying attention." Her mother improved slowly. She could drink on her own now. She could sit up for short moments. When she spoke, her voice had more strength than before. She asked Ethan many questions about humans, about the stars, about why someone would travel alone. Ethan answered honestly. He had been part of a survey mission. Something went wrong. A storm damaged the ship. His team evacuated, believing him dead. His beacon had failed. He survived because humans prepared for failure. "I was waiting for rescue," he said. "But waiting doesn't help people who need water today." Word spread. At first, it came as whispers carried by the wind. Then shapes appeared at a distance. Scavengers watching from ridges. Traders passing slower than usual. They did not approach. They simply observed. Sari noticed. "They are afraid," she said. "They are careful," Ethan corrected. "Fear fades, care stays." One evening, a small group approached openly. 3 figures, unarmed, thin and tired. They stopped far enough away to show respect. "We heard there is clean water here," one said. Sari looked at Ethan, unsure. He nodded slightly. "There is," he said. "Enough to share, but not to waste." They brought containers. Ethan watched closely as they filled them from the purifier. When they drank and did not cough, their eyes widened. "You will be targeted," one warned. "The raiders will not allow this." "They already tried," Ethan said. That night Sari could not sleep. She lay awake listening to the wind and distant engines. She knew what change brought: attention. And attention brought danger. She was right. The raiders did not come screaming this time. They came smart. Just before dawn, the alarms whispered instead of rang. Ethan was on his feet instantly. He motioned for Sari to stay inside. Her heart pounded as she watched through a small opening. Figures moved carefully between rocks, more than before, better armed, watching patterns, learning. Ethan did not rush. He moved with patience like the land itself. He disabled one trap to draw attention, then repositioned. When the first shot came, it was not lethal. It struck the ground, a warning. "Leave," Ethan's voice carried across the basin. "This place is protected." Laughter answered him. "You are one," a raider shouted back. "We are many." "You are hungry," Ethan replied, "and afraid. That makes you predictable." The fight did not explode into chaos. It unfolded like a lesson. Ethan used terrain, sound, and timing. He forced the raiders to spread out, then retreat. He did not chase. He held the line. Sari watched, hands clenched. She saw something important. Ethan was not enjoying this. He was protecting. When it was over, the raiders withdrew again, slower this time, more cautious, more shaken. That night, Sari sat beside Ethan as he cleaned his equipment. "They will return," she said. "Yes," he replied. "Will you leave when they do?" He looked at her then, really looked. "No," her throat tightened. "Why?" "Because this matters," he said simply. "And because someone once stayed for me." She did not ask who. Days turned into a pattern. Water flowed. People came carefully. Her mother grew stronger. Sari learned more than she ever had before, not just how to survive, but how to plan. One evening, as the stars brightened, Sari asked, "Are humans all like you?" Ethan smiled faintly. "No, but enough of us are." She thought about that as she watched her mother drink clean water without pain. Far away, engines gathered, bigger ones, organized ones. The dry world was changing, and the galaxy was beginning to notice. The engines arrived before the sunrise. Sari felt them through the ground first, a deep vibration that traveled into her bones. She sat up at once, heart racing. Outside, the alarms Ethan had built whispered urgently, their soft signals layered and overlapping. This was not a small group. This was not curious scavengers. This was a decision. Ethan was already moving. He checked the perimeter with quick, calm motions, then stepped back inside the shelter. "It's time," he said quietly. Sari's mother was awake too. She looked stronger than she had weeks ago, but fear still crossed her face. "Are they here for us?" "Yes," Ethan said honestly. "But not just us," Sari swallowed. "What do we do?" Ethan knelt in front of her, meeting her eyes. "You trust me." She nodded without hesitation. He activated a device on his wrist. A small light blinked to life. "I was saving this," he said. "Because once it's used, everything changes." Sari did not fully understand, but she felt the weight in his voice. "Is it bad?" "No," he replied. "It's just loud." Outside, ships descended in a wide arc, larger than before, heavier, painted with the same cruel markings but more organized. The raiders had gathered allies, or claimed leadership. Either way, they believed today would end this problem. Ethan guided Sari and her mother into a reinforced corner of the shelter. "Stay here," he said. "No matter what you hear." "You're not coming back in?" Sari asked. He smiled gently. "I will." Then he stepped outside alone. The raider leader emerged first. Tall, armored, confident. He spread his arms as if welcoming an audience. "Human," he called, "you've caused trouble. You've changed the flow. That costs us." Ethan stood still, hands visible, weapon lowered but ready. "You chose to profit from suffering," he said. "That cost was always coming." The leader laughed. "One human does not decide the fate of this world." "You're right," Ethan said. "I don't." He tapped his wrist. High above the clouds, a signal burst outward. clean, strong, human. The raiders did not notice at first. They were too focused on the ground, on numbers, on threats they understood. Ethan moved. He did not charge, he did not roar. He acted with purpose. He triggered sound traps, splitting their formation. Smoke rose from controlled detonations, not meant to kill but to confuse. He guided their movement, forcing them into narrow paths where numbers meant nothing. They fired wildly. Shots burned stone and air. Ethan moved through it like water, precise and disciplined. He disabled weapons. He struck armor joints. He used the environment like it was part of him. The raiders began to panic. This was not a fight they understood. This was not brute force. This was planning. From the shelter, Sari watched through a small crack. She saw Ethan fall once and rise again. She saw raiders retreat, then regroup, then break apart under pressure. She felt fear, but also something new, pride. A raider shot struck near the purifier. Sari gasped. The unit sparked but held. Clean water still flowed. Ethan saw it too, his movements sharpened. He placed himself between the raiders and the shelter without thinking, without hesitation. The leader shouted in anger. "Kill him!" They rushed together. And then the sky answered. A sound rolled across the land deeper than thunder. The clouds split. Light spilled downward. Shapes emerged, massive and unmistakable. Human ships. They descended with control and restraint, not firing, not threatening, just present, powerful. Watching, the raiders froze. A calm voice echoed across the basin, amplified and clear. "This is a human-protected zone. Stand down." Some raiders dropped their weapons immediately. Others ran. A few tried to flee in their ships, only to find themselves gently but firmly blocked by human craft. Ethan lowered his weapon and finally allowed himself to breathe. Human soldiers landed, moving with discipline. They secured the area without cruelty, without excess. They treated the wounded even among the raiders. They shut down weapons, not lives. One officer approached Ethan. "You activated the beacon," she said. "Yes," Ethan replied. "I had to." She looked around at the shelter, the purifier, the people gathering cautiously at the edges. "You did more than survive," she said quietly. "You built something." Sari stepped outside then, unable to hold back any longer. Her mother followed slowly, supported by a medic. Ethan turned and saw them. Relief softened his face. "It's over," Sari asked. "For today," he said. "And for this place." The officer knelt in front of Sari. "You're safe now," she said. "Humans will stay." Sari blinked. "Stay?" "Yes," the officer replied. "We don't leave places like this anymore." Over the next days, the dry world changed faster than Sari thought possible. Human engineers expanded the purification system. Solar fields rose. Shelters strengthened. Medical stations opened. Trade routes shifted away from raiders and toward stability. People came out of hiding. Children laughed near clean water for the first time in their lives. Sari's mother recovered fully. Color returned to her skin. Strength returned to her voice. One morning she walked outside alone and felt the sun without pain. Sari watched it all with wide eyes. Ethan stayed. He helped train locals. He taught without pride, without claiming ownership. He listened. He learned names. He remembered stories. One evening, as the stars filled the sky, Sari sat beside him near the purifier. "Are you leaving now?" she asked softly. "Eventually," he said. "Humans move." "It's what we do." Her chest tightened. "I don't want you to go." He looked at her, then at the lights of the growing settlement. "You won't be alone," he said. "That's the difference." She nodded slowly. "You found me," she said, "when I was small, when no one else saw." Ethan smiled. Humans are good at seeing things others ignore. When the time came, his ship waited on the edge of the basin. Sari and her mother stood with many others. No one begged him to stay. They did not need to. He knelt in front of Sari one last time. "You were brave before I came," he said. "Don't forget that." She hugged him tightly. "I won't." As the ship lifted into the sky, Sari looked down at the water flowing freely across the land. She remembered the long walks, the fear, the danger, Those days were over. And far across the galaxy, stories began to spread. Not about a powerful human army, not about weapons or conquest, but about a single human who saw a small girl carrying water for her sick mother and decided that the universe could do better, and then proved it.